Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I'm sure it won't come to a surprise to the House that I am standing and, along with my colleagues, speaking in opposition to this bill. I want to acknowledge all the former speakers, certainly on this side of the House, for the great contribution they've made, and I would urge the Minister to perhaps listen to what has been said, because common sense has to prevail on this. And I think that the one position that the Minister heralds as a wonderful, wonderful thing is the benefit abatement in terms of the income thresholds. Well, we know in terms of the GST rises, well, that's going to be wiped out anyway for a start. So that once again, people on benefits are going to be behind the eight ball. And, Mr Speaker, what astounds me is the main objective of these changes. The main objective that this government states is to ensure a fairer system of social assistance with an unrelenting focus on work. Well, that just has to be one of the funniest things I've heard in this House, apart from Nick Smith answering the questions on ACC at question time. It would. It'd be up there, wouldn't it? This is sad funny. These are sad funny. These are peculiar funny. And this is what this government is about. It is a very, very peculiar government. On one hand, it says we have an unrelenting focus on work. On the other hand, it creates no jobs. It says we have an unrelenting focus on work, and it gives the ability for employers to sack everybody in their first 3 months. And if we look today, as Phil Goss spoke to, he went to a supermarket opening in his electorate of Mount Roskill today. Now that's great. That's jobs, 150 jobs. Well, it was just about a health and safety issue to go and get the job. Because for 150 jobs, you'd get mowed down in the rust of 2,500 workers. Now that, Mr Chairman, is an absolute indictment on this government. It is absolutely appalling. And then if we look at women, once their children are 6 years old, they should be back at work. Well, I know that my colleague here, the wonderful Carmel Sepuloni, and in fact when my my youngest child was 6 years old, I went back to work. And I'll tell this House it was not easy. And if this government is so intent on an unrelenting focus of getting people back into work, even though there's no job creation, then why didn't they support flexible work hours? Because if this government wants to pretend that this is a government that really fosters good working relationships, and I'd love Kate Wilkinson to take a call on that, if they want to foster it, then why wouldn't they support flexible work hours legislation when it came in? No, they wouldn't. What they want to do is take a punitive approach to people getting into work. And we know, and Labor has a track record, Mr Chair, that if you support people, if you provide the support, if you provide the training, if you provide the opportunities, then people will take advantage of that. And we saw unemployment dropping dramatically under the Labor government with those incentives in there. With that support and incentives, we're looking at early childhood education. Many people who want to get back into work now to take advantage of our early childhood policy. Again, what's happening? A dumbing down of the provisions, cuts, and indeed cuts to the quality. So this is a government who actually puts no money where its mouth is. In fact, that would be a pretty fair comment. The minister who's put this bill forward, it's all about mouth. It's all about a big mouth, about stepping up, lots and lots of big mouth. Big mouth about stepping up. Stepping up. Well, I would ask the minister to take a call on just how someone is supposed to step up. When you have a government, when there is a government that uses every available opportunity to dump on people. Step up and we'll jump on you and push you down, because this is what this government's about. And I can see some of them. I can see Katrina Shanks looking perturbed over there, because Katrina often looks quite perturbed because of this government's... Mr Chair.
Lynn Pillay.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. She looks really perturbed, and indeed a number do. They look perturbed about this government. It's more than embarrassed. This government is ashamed. And if they're not ashamed, they should be. Because this bill does nothing at all to help people into work. If you want to see people helped into work, then you look at the initiatives that the Labor government brought in the last term of government. Initiatives such as support for working mothers, such as paid parental leave, opposed by the National Party, early childhood initiatives. That minister, Mr Chair, she was the biggest opponent to early childhood education. Absolutely shocking. And then, of all things, we see a minister who took every advantage of every opportunity that she had in terms of training incentive allowance to further her own career. And what did she do? Up the ladder came after her. Up the ladder came. How the hell can people step up when there's no ladder because the minister's pulled it up after her? So this Mr Chair, we've had some doozies. We've had some doozies of bills from that side of the House, from this government, but I think this is up there with as bad as it gets. Would you agree?
I agree with that.
Would you agree?
I agree.
And Carmel Sepuloni agrees, and I'm really proud that we agree, because Carmel Sepuloni and Darian Fenton and Rajan Prasad, and in fact Sir William Seo, we all agree that we need opportunities. We need opportunities for people to reach their full potential, because we know the dignity of work and the dignity of a good job. A good job. I always remember when Ken Douglas, another person that's probably vilified by the national government, but Ken Douglas's granddad said to him when he got his first job, you look after that job because somebody has worked very, very hard to create that job and the terms and conditions around it. And this government has made an absolute virtue out of decimating workplace rights, workplace pay, a government that's opposed every initiative that has been about improving conditions of work, the ability to train. And it's something that when I heard Steve Chadwick say before, Mr Chair, nearly 160,000 people are out of work. Well, when we received this information from our research department, it was 159. I'm sure the way this government's going to be up to 160 now, because it is escalating day by day. And this is a government who is going to create jobs, who has an unrelenting focus on work. Well, I've got news for this government. If you want people to have an unrelenting focus on work, you've got to have an unrelenting focus on creating jobs so they can work. And there are no jobs, no plan, no training, no support, and nothing that helps people into the dignity of work. And if they do have a job, they have over their head that any time within the first 3 months they can be dumped for any reason whatsoever. Any reason, if they manage to be one of the 150 that got the job out of the 2,500 that applied, there is no protection, no ability for them to be told, look, we just might have some concerns, so you lift your performance, step up. No, they can be dumped in the first 3 months of their job, and from a government who has an unrelenting focus on work. It is an absolute joke. And, Mr Chair, we on this side of the House will continue, and I thank you, Mr Chair, for allowing 2 calls on this, because I know that it's something you feel quite passionately, or Mr Chair feels quite passionately about himself, and we do appreciate you allowing this side of the House to take calls. And I would urge the opposition to either put up, step up, or shut up. Because if you cannot justify this bill, then we'd urge you to listen to the common sense, the profound, the deep, the meaningful arguments from this side of the House that say that this bill won't work. This bill is just a bit of the good old-fashioned beneficiary bashing, which is what the national government seems to think that there is a lot of merit in. Mr. Chair, as I've said before,